You became a stranger to your own life the moment you decided to grow. You sit at the same table with the same family, surrounded by the friends you have known for decades, yet an unsettling realization washes over you. You no longer speak their language. The conversations that once entertained you now feel hollow. Their daily grievances seem trivial, and their constant judgments feel suffocating. You are physically present, but entirely disconnected. This is the unspoken toll of elevating your mind, profound, agonizing solitude. Today, we will dissect exactly why pulling yourself out of the dark requires a painful distancing from the people you love most, and how you can navigate this brutal transition without losing your mind or your newfound path. This separation is not a mystical concept. It is a fundamental reality of human mechanics. When you reconstruct your thoughts, your habits, and your core beliefs, you alter the very frequency at which you operate. You have essentially changed the channel. You're no longer tuned into the daily broadcasts of constant complaint, artificial drama, or superficial distraction. The harsh reality is that your environment has not touched the dial, because they are operating on the old frequency. The noise they produce clashes violently with the silence you're building. You try to share a breakthrough, and it is met with blank stares. You attempt to build something meaningful, and they drag the conversation back to trivial complaints. Two devices transmitting on completely different channels cannot communicate. This initial phase of isolation is merely the result of severe energetic dissonance. Accept this friction as biological proof of your progression. Do not attempt to force them onto your frequency, and absolutely refuse to lower your own just to make the room comfortable. Stand firmly in the static. Understanding this mechanical difference is the first step, but the true friction begins when they realize the person they used to know is gone. To your immediate circle, your identity is fixed. You are assigned a role. The quiet one, the reliable anchor, the one who never says no, the entertainer. When you commit to true personal evolution, that designated character must die. You begin establishing boundaries, demanding respect, and pursuing depth over distraction. You stop playing the part they wrote for you. This sudden shift terrifies them. It is not that they despise you, they simply do not recognize the architect who has replaced their predictable friend. Their resistance, their mocking, and their attempts to belittle your progress are purely defensive mechanisms. Their inability to accept your new parameters is a direct reflection of their own deep-seated terror of change. You must grant them the grace to be confused, but you must never apologize for outgrowing the script. Let the old character burn away completely. Do not try to resurrect pieces of your past self just to ease their anxiety. As you let go of who you were, you will soon notice the invisible structures they use to try and force you back into place. The social matrix is not a grand conspiracy. It is the silent gravitational pull of conformity within your immediate environment. It is the palpable tension in the room when you decline the alcohol, skip the gossip, or refuse to participate in collective misery. A group operates on survival instincts, and its primary goal is to maintain absolute cohesion. When one member breaks formation, it threatens the stability of the entire unit. They will attempt a rescue mission. They will tell you that you have lost your edge, that you take life too seriously, or that you used to be much more fun. This is not concern, this is coercion. They desperately need you to shrink back into the box, because your escape highlights their confinement. Recognize these comments for what they are, the desperate gravity of a dying orbit. Hold your trajectory. Smile politely at their concern, but do not yield an inch of your new ground. The stronger your resolve, the more obvious your transformation becomes, turning you into something they desperately want to avoid looking at. By simply existing in your upgraded state, you become a walking, breathing mirror for everyone around you. Your unyielding discipline magnifies their profound laziness. Your cultivated peace exposes their chaotic anxiety. Your raw authenticity highlights the heavy masks they wear every single day. No one enjoys having their flaws illuminated, especially by someone who used to sit in the mud right beside them. When faced with this mirror, human nature dictates two responses: confront the reflection and change, or shatter the glass. It is infinitely easier for them to criticize your ambition, mock your habits, and push you away than it is to look inward and take responsibility for their own stagnation. You cannot control their reaction to the reflection. Your only duty is to keep the glass clean. Do not dim your light or diminish your progress to make their inadequacies easier to bear. As you continue to reflect these hard truths, you will find that the very words you use to describe the world no longer align with theirs. You now possess a burning desire to discuss purpose, psychological resilience, breaking ancestral patterns, and building a legacy. Meanwhile, they remain firmly entrenched in discussing the weather, the latest distraction, or the failures of other people. There is no moral superiority here. It is simply a total divergence of language, attempting to force profound dialogue upon a mind that is entirely committed to the superficial is an exercise in futility. It is the equivalent of teaching advanced calculus to a child learning the alphabet. It breeds intense frustration for you and deep resentment for them. You end up feeling completely misunderstood, and they end up feeling interrogated. Cease all attempts to translate your world into theirs. Learn the immense power of remaining silent when the environment cannot hold the weight of your words. Protect your insights. This inability to communicate is the final catalyst that pushes you into the wilderness, a necessary phase of the journey we must now confront. Almost every path of deep transformation requires a season in the wasteland. It is an unavoidable, brutal rite of passage. You are not being punished by the universe, you are being quarantined. You desperately need this profound isolation to detoxify from the decades of external influence that meticulously shaped your former, weaker self. Without this strict period of silence, you will never learn to distinguish your own authentic voice from the loud, chaotic demands of the crowd you just left behind. When you try to skip this phase, you drag the heavy, suffocating weight of their opinions directly into your new life. You inevitably compromise your grand vision just to soften their immediate judgments, effectively tearing your own identity in two. You remain stuck in a painful, agonizing purgatory. You are far too aware to ever enjoy the mindless distractions of the old life, but you remain too heavily attached to step fully into the power of the new one. Embrace this temporary exile instead of fighting it with desperate distraction. You are not being left behind. You are simply clearing the stage of bad actors. Use this profound silence to hear your own internal command, without the crippling static of their expectations. Understand deeply that this emptiness is not a curse meant to break you, but a profound mechanism of creation designed to build you. Nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. When the individuals who no longer match your elevated frequency begin to exit your daily life, they leave behind a massive echoing void in your schedule and your mind. Your immediate biological instinct is pure panic. You perceive this newfound space as a catastrophic loss, a terrifying sign that you have done something terribly wrong and are destined to die alone. This primal panic drives people right back into the toxic environments they just fought so hard to escape. They text the destructive ex, they call the chronically unsupportive friend, they return to the familiar bar just to feel the fleeting warmth of another human being, even if that warmth is slowly burning them alive. They willingly trade their immense untapped potential for cheap, immediate comfort. You must train yourself to view this terrifying emptiness as the most fertile ground you will ever stand on. You cannot possibly build an impenetrable fortress on a foundation cluttered with fragile, rotting huts. You must allow the old structures to collapse completely and sweep away the debris. Hold the line in the empty space, because desperately trying to save them will only poison your new soil. The greatest, most destructive mistake of the newly awakened mind is the development of a savior complex. You finally discover a better, stronger way to live, and your immediate, desperate impulse is to drag your family and old friends toward the light. You falsely believe that if you just explain your philosophy perfectly, they will suddenly see the truth and join you on the mountaintop. You treat their lives as a project you must fix. This is not genuine love. This is disguised, unchecked arrogance. When you relentlessly try to fix the people around you, you loudly signal that you believe they are fundamentally broken. This generates massive psychological resistance and bitter, endless conflict. You exhaust your own vital energy trying to pull heavy people up a steep mountain they never agreed to climb, creating deep resentment on both sides of the rope. True, uncompromising love is witnessing exactly where someone currently stands in their journey and leaving them right there without judgment. Your ultimate mission is not to be their unpaid teacher or spiritual guide, but to be the absolute silent embodiment of your own truth. Walk your path with quiet dignity. And as you do, you will realize you must stop playing their hidden psychological games entirely. The overwhelming bulk of standard social interaction is built entirely upon unspoken destructive psychological games. The perpetual victim game, the subtle competition game, the shared misery game. Your previous relationships relied heavily on you consistently playing your specific submissive part just to keep the toxic dynamic alive and keep their fragile egos comfortably fed. You were an essential gear in their machine of mediocrity. Now that your vision is crystal clear, you see the invisible strings attached to every conversation. You see the subtle manipulation, the passive-aggressive jabs, and their desperate, endless need for external validation. Participating in these theatrical games now feels like swallowing broken glass, but the moment you refuse to play, you instantly strip them of their primary energy source. You become utterly useless to their ego. Let them genuinely think you have become arrogant. Let them complain to others that you are now boring and distant. You are simply refusing to bleed out on their stage for their entertainment anymore. Withdraw your participation entirely and permanently. By doing so, you finally clear the very last layer of emotional debris, making room for the exceptional people who are actually searching for someone like you. The universe is incredibly efficient at rewarding absolute, unwavering courage. As you firmly hold your ground in this higher frequency, enduring the painful isolation and refusing to compromise your standards, you slowly turn yourself into a powerful magnetic beacon. You completely stop broadcasting the weak signal of social desperation and begin radiating the heavy, undeniable energy of quiet certainty. If you cowardly continue to wear the old comfortable mask just to keep the artificial peace at the Sunday family dinner table, you actively block this powerful signal. You remain completely invisible to the high-caliber people who are actually meant to fight alongside you. You tragically trade the profound possibility of a powerful aligned brotherhood for the miserable certainty of a stagnant, dying social circle. Trust the brutal, unforgiving process of energetic realignment. The painful isolation you feel right now is simply the dark, necessary hallway leading to a room full of individuals who will finally understand your native language without translation. Stay firmly on your frequency. Your true tribe is already looking for you, but before you can meet them, we must address the intense, hidden grief of leaving the living behind. The hardest mourning process is not for those who have passed away, but for those who are still breathing yet entirely unreachable. You are grieving the sudden death of a shared future that will never exist. It is a profound, silent tragedy. You walk past the places you used to frequent together, and the memories feel like ghosts haunting a life you no longer inhabit. This is the unacknowledged pain of outgrowing your environment. Ignoring this grief creates a dangerous internal pressure. Men often try to bury this sorrow under extreme productivity or rigid emotional detachment, but unfelt grief slowly hardens into deep, toxic resentment. You start secretly hating them for not growing with you. Poisoning your own mind, you carry the rotting corpse of a dead relationship on your back, exhausting the vital energy needed to build your new empire. You must allow yourself to fully mourn the people they used to be and the comfort they once provided. Feel the loss completely, but do not let it drag you back into the cemetery. Acknowledge that their chapter in your story has gracefully concluded. Honor the good times they gave you, forgive their inability to join you, and step forward into the reality that leaving them behind brings its own heavy burden of guilt. The trap of loyalty is the belief that you owe your life to those who were there at the beginning. You look at your old friends and realize they are not evil. They are just deeply, comfortably stagnant. The overwhelming guilt hits you at night. You feel like a traitor abandoning soldiers in the trenches. Even though the war ended years ago, society conditioned you to believe that outgrowing decent people is a moral failure. This misplaced guilt will destroy your momentum. If you slow your own pace to avoid making them feel bad, you commit the ultimate betrayal against your own potential. You sacrifice a lion's destiny to keep the sheep comfortable. The tragedy is that your sacrifice helps absolutely no one. You simply become another suppressed, miserable shadow adding to the collective mediocrity instead of becoming a beacon of what is possible. True loyalty requires you to become the strongest, most capable version of yourself. Regardless of who gets left in the dust, you do not owe anyone your future. Forgive yourself for wanting more than the scraps of a complacent life. Release the heavy guilt of forward motion. Your rise is not a betrayal, it is a necessity. And this necessity will be fiercely tested the next time you are forced to sit at their table. The family dinner table often transforms into the ultimate battleground for your new identity. You sit quietly passing the food while surrounded by a chaotic symphony of limiting beliefs, ancestral trauma, and casual negativity. They will throw subtle jabs masked as jokes, probing your defenses, trying to provoke the old reactive version of you. It is a highly pressurized environment designed to force regression. If you take the bait, you lose instantly. Getting angry, defending your new lifestyle, or trying to logically debate their ingrained pessimism only feeds their need for drama. It drags you right back down into their emotional mud. You burn precious mental clarity trying to prove your sovereignty to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your frustration becomes the exact proof they use to claim you are lost. Master the art of the invisible shield. Be physically present but emotionally unbothered. Smile, pass the salt, and remain an absolute mountain of calm. Let their chaotic words pass through you without striking your ego. You are no longer a participant in their generational dysfunction. You are merely a silent observer. This unbreakable calm is powerful, but you must ensure it does not quietly mutate into a dangerous arrogance. As you gain discipline, clarity, and control, a dark shadow begins to follow you: spiritual and intellectual arrogance. You look at the masses eating poison, wasting time, and complaining endlessly, and a quiet sense of superiority takes root. You start viewing ordinary people as weak or blind. This trap is seductive because your newly acquired strength makes the contrast incredibly sharp and undeniably real. Arrogance is a fatal poison to true wisdom. When you despise those who are still asleep, you adopt the exact same judgmental frequency you claim to escape. Your ego simply wears a better suit. This rigid superiority isolates you behind walls of pride, making you brittle. You become unable to learn, unable to show grace, and utterly disconnected from the shared human struggle that you were a part of just yesterday. Replace the cheap high of superiority with the heavy burden of deep humility. You are not better than them. You merely woke up a few hours earlier. Remember your own years of blindness. View their struggles with a quiet, powerful compassion, knowing how hard it is to break the chains. Maintain your high standards, but keep your heart grounded. This balance allows you to protect your life force without becoming a tyrant. You are an active battery, and your energy is the most valuable currency you possess. Every interaction either charges you or drains you. Your old circles stuck in survival mode are often unconscious energy vampires. They do not mean to harm you, but their constant need for validation, their endless crises, and their heavy pessimism act like leeches on your ambition. You must become ruthless about your exposure. If you allow unrestricted access to your time and mind, they will bleed you dry. You will wake up exhausted, lacking the fire required to build your own vision. You start compromising your routines just to be a good friend or an obedient son. This lack of defense mechanisms guarantees that your grand transformation will stall out. You will drown trying to act as a life raft for people who refuse to swim. You can honor your history with someone while permanently revoking their daily access to your energy. Love them from a safe distance. Keep interactions brief, polite, and firmly within your control. You are not being cruel. You are simply defending the fortress of your mind. Protecting your energy is the foundation of self-respect, and this silent boundary sets the stage for the most powerful form of leadership. Most profound arguments are never spoken. They are demonstrated. When you first step onto a higher path, your ego demands that you explain yourself. You want to verbally defend your new habits, outline your grand vision, and convince your skeptical family that you are doing the right thing. You waste hours trying to construct the perfect logical argument to justify your evolution. Words are cheap, and to a cynical mind, they sound like arrogant delusions. Every time you try to verbally convince someone who is committed to their own stagnation, you give away your power. You enter their courtroom, allowing them to act as the judge of your potential. When you fail to convince them, you absorb their doubt, returning to your work drained and second-guessing your own ambition. Shut your mouth and let your results scream. True authority is forged in absolute silence. Build your discipline, transform your body, secure your mind, and let the undeniable evidence of your growth become the only statement you ever make. When your life becomes an unarguable masterpiece, their criticisms evaporate, replaced by a silent, undeniable respect. Society has installed a deeply flawed definition of loyalty into your mind. You were taught that loyalty means standing by your people, regardless of how toxic, complacent, or destructive they become. You learn to view self-sacrifice as a noble virtue, willingly setting yourself on fire just to keep the people around you warm. This is not loyalty, it is a prolonged, agonizing suicide. When you sacrifice your grandest potential to maintain an old friendship, you commit the ultimate betrayal against the man you were meant to become. You break the most sacred contract you hold, the one with your own soul. Living a compromised, half-hearted existence just to avoid making your old circle uncomfortable guarantees a life haunted by the bitter ghost of what you could have been. The absolute highest form of loyalty is an uncompromising allegiance to your own highest standard. You must fiercely protect your future, even if it means deeply disappointing your past. When you finally learn to betray their mediocre expectations, you set yourself entirely free to fulfill your own sovereign destiny. The transition from agonizing loneliness to profound solitude is the turning point of your entire life. At first, the silence left behind by those who faded away feels like a deafening roar. It terrifies you. You are suddenly forced to sit alone in a room with nothing but your own uncensored thoughts, facing the demons you previously drowned out with social noise and meaningless distraction. Most men break in this phase. They run back to the chaos because facing their own internal emptiness is simply too daunting. But if you hold the line, the texture of the silence begins to change. The noise of their expectations fades completely, and for the very first time in your existence, you can clearly hear the uncorrupted command of your own authentic voice. Solitude transforms from a dark prison into an impenetrable fortress. You realize that you do not need their validation to exist. You find a deep, unshakable comfort in your own presence. This is the ultimate baseline of masculine power. The absolute capability to stand entirely alone in the void and feel completely at peace. Your time, your focus, and your vital energy are the only real assets you possess. If you leave the gates to your life unguarded, the world will instinctively siphon you dry. Your family will demand your time. Old friends will dump their emotional garbage at your feet, and society will constantly test your limits. Without strict borders, your kingdom will be continuously invaded. Weak boundaries are an invitation for disrespect. When you constantly negotiate your non-negotiables, you teach people that your word means nothing. You say you need to work, but you answer their call anyway. You say you have changed, but you tolerate their familiar disrespect. This internal collapse breeds a deep self-loathing because you know you're complicit in your own destruction. Construct boundaries made of cold, unforgiving steel. Learn the immense power of a quiet, unapologetic no. Do not over-explain your refusal. A single firm sentence is a complete response. When you enforce strict consequences for those who cross your lines, you finally establish the sovereign authority required to rule your own life. We have arrived at the summit. You have survived the painful separation, endured the agonizing isolation, and successfully rebuilt your internal architecture. The heavy armor you used to wear, the fake laughs, the suppressed opinions, the desperate need to be liked, lies shattered on the ground behind you. You have effectively shed the dead skin of your former existence. The relief you feel is indescribable. You no longer have to remember which mask to wear for which group of people. You have stopped trying to fold yourself into a shape that fits a fundamentally broken world. Walking into a room without the agonizing pressure to perform or conform is a level of psychological freedom that most human beings will simply never experience. This is the ultimate prize. You are completely unbothered by their judgments because you no longer live in their reality. You stand tall as an untamed sovereign individual, operating on a frequency they cannot even perceive. The solitary path was undeniably brutal, but it was the exact price required to purchase your absolute freedom. The agonizing distance you feel between yourself and the life you used to know is not a symptom of failure. It is the undeniable heavy proof of your own evolution. The bridge behind you is burning, and the flames are illuminating a path you must now walk entirely on your own. It is a harsh reality to accept that the people you loved were only cast for a single chapter of your life, not the entire volume. But mourning their exit is the final requirement before you can turn the page. You are no longer the man they thought they knew. You have paid the ultimate price in solitude, and in return, you have purchased your own soul. The silence you fought so hard against has become your greatest weapon. Keep walking quietly into the dark. At the end of this isolation, an entirely new world is waiting, built by those who also survived the fire. If this truth resonated with the silent battles you fight every single day, subscribe to this channel. Share a single word in the comments that defines the chapter you are writing right now. We will meet again on the path.